I think a good way to learn how to do the Bigfoot is to have a camera and film something as you're moving. Is it steady or not? Happy New Week. It's pouring rain here. It poured all night, so I'm at the studio at 6 a.m. to see if my room is flooded. It's probably going to be a day of leak management and editing, my two favorite things. I'm listening to Trickster Makes This World by Lewis Hyde, and he's going over the myth of Hermes and talking about some Navajo and Winnebago trickster stories. Very interesting. All about boundaries and appetites and cravings, and very interesting metaphors. It is 2 days after the race, and I'm experiencing what they call DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness. It doesn't happen the day of or even the day after the race, but 2 days later, your muscles go into meltdown mode. And this happens when you do something that is way out of character for what your muscles have been used to. And what triggered it for me was the downhill running after the race. The uphill is fine. I used up some glycogen, created some hydrogen ions in there, some acidity. But the downhill running puts your legs under an eccentric loading. So the difference between concentric and eccentric, if I were to do a bicep curl, I'm making the bicep shorter as I lift, so that's concentric. But if I were to take that weight and slowly lower the weight, my bicep is lengthening under load, and that's called an eccentric contraction. So this is why people will tell you to do negatives on your exercises, like have someone lift the weight off your chest and then you slowly lower it to your chest, a weight that you wouldn't be able to lift on your own. Or pull-ups. Jump up to the bar into the pull-up position and then let yourself slowly down. That's an eccentric load, and that causes more damage than the shortening or the concentric loading. So whenever you do lots of negatives, you have a somewhat negative experience 2 days later. So why I'm bringing this up is that it's very, very important to understand the difference between fatigued muscles and sore muscles. So my muscles are sore. They're not tired, they're sore. So lack of fuel versus muscular damage, actually damaging the muscle fibers. So what I'm going to do today is very gentle movement on the elliptical and maybe some Bigfoot light on the treadmill, but at a really gentle pace, not that long. I'm not trying to get a workout. That's not the goal. The goal is simply to move the muscles through a very gentle range of motion to pump blood in, to get lymph out, to help with the healing process. So in the past, I know that if I just sit on my sore legs, which I'm doing, I'm editing today, so I'm going to be in this chair for a good chunk of the day, it's not going to help the healing. In fact, it's going to make it worse. I'm limiting the blood flow in and out of my legs. There's no lymph movement at all because lymph doesn't have its own pump like the heart. So your body needs to move to get the lymph moving. So I'm going to hop on the elliptical just to move so that the blood and the lymph can do what they need to do, and that'll speed up the healing process. But my movement over the next few days is not about getting a workout. So it's vitally important to know the difference between fatigue and soreness. If you're tired, you can work out. If you're sore, you need to move, but don't work out. So be gentle and allow your muscle tissue to repair itself. This could take 3 days, it could take a week, depending on how much damage you've done. Which is why I counsel people never ever work out till you're sore. One of the things that is most challenging about my coaching practice is that when you're starting someone out, either in the beginning or after recovering from an injury or a lapse of time, they want to do too much, and they'll likely work out to the point of soreness. Like people go to the gym and they do a ton of work, and the next day or 2 days later, they're really sore. That's not good. You don't want to do that because you want to be able to work out 2 days later and 3 days later and 4 days later. If you're sore, you can't work out. So it's really hard to get people out of the mindset of train until you're sore, because what you've done is damaged yourself. You've actually torn the tissue. You don't need to tear the tissue to get stronger or to grow. You need to stress it. You need to force an adaptation, but that doesn't require that you actually damage the tissue. So why did I let myself get sore by running down the mountain? Well, it was kind of unavoidable. It was freezing on top of the mountain. I was soaking wet. It was raining. I needed to get down before I got hypothermia. So there was a cost-benefit calculation in my head. Take the chairlift, get hypothermia, run down, get sore legs, but avoid hypothermia. And I chose the sore legs. But that's not something I'm going to do on a regular basis. All of my strength training, all of the pull-ups, the knees to bar, everything that I do, the dips, none of it's to maximum, none of it makes me sore, and yet I grow and get stronger and improve my endurance without pushing myself to soreness. And I can do it all again the next day and the next day and the next day. If you're sore, move, but gently. If you're tired, that's up to you. You can work out and you'll probably be less tired if you work out, or you can take a break. When I'm tired, I train and it wakes me up and then I feel reinvigorated. But when I'm sore, I don't train, I move. All right, enough of that. Sitting here listening to Trickster Makes This World, and he's talking about how a lot of these trickster myths in various cultures were a way to explain the mind, to explain uncertainty, to explain the volatility of things, that people tend to seek out black and white answers for things. And the trickster myths are there to tell us that things are not always black and white. There's always an element of trickster in everything that happens. Things don't make sense a lot of the time. Sometimes they seem to, but there are other times where it's just the opposite of sense. And I like this book because it aligns with the view of the world that I have now, that we should embrace uncertainty and not get too attached to any particular outcome or any particular cause, that we should continue to keep it in a flexible state so that we can adapt, and not just adapt, but avoid being too wrong. We're most likely going to be wrong in much of what we do, but we don't want to be too wrong. A little bit wrong is okay. So allowing for the trickster and allowing for uncertainty allows your mistakes, your wrongness to be small and survivable. Getting back to the studio at almost 9 o'clock, I just finished up a board meeting for the Bennington Area Trail System. We're talking about all of our spring and summer projects now that the snow is gone and people are going to be out there mountain biking and trail running. We've got, I don't know, maybe 10 to 15 miles of trails on Mount Anthony here in town. A lot of changes with ownership of some of the land parcels, and we lost one of our parking areas, so lots to talk about. But now I'm back at the studio. I'm going to finish up some more strength training, doing neutral pull-ups tonight, neutral grip, which is this grip. So pull up, chin up, neutral grip. And I like those because it's similar to ski poling motion. So I prefer the neutral grip. Anyway, gonna do a bunch of those, do some writing, do some coaching, and then head home for a late dinner and maybe some treadmill. What you doing, Chucky? The poplars are in full bloom. I am just leaving my last OT appointment for my thumb. They have decided that I'm all done. So now I gotta continue doing the PT exercises on my own. Probably have 90% of my range of motion back. It still hurts. so that's probably going to be permanent traumatic arthritis in there, but 90% of the range of motion, not bad. I'll take it. I just had a really fascinating experience when I walked in the door. There was a voice in my head that said, "You can take the elevator. You've got 3 heavy bags, and it's your birthday." But then as I came into the lobby, there was someone standing next to the elevator who just pushed the button, and I didn't want to be on the elevator with somebody else, so suddenly the stairs became so appealing. It's funny how that happens. Just finishing up a pretty mellow day of training, hour and 20 on the elliptical, 20 minutes of pulling, and then some tricep dips, which are harder than normal dips because you're putting less emphasis on the chest and more on the back of the arm. Anyway, I'm gonna head home now, pick up my family, and we're gonna go to Williamstown, Massachusetts, just over the border, and go to a Thai restaurant for a birthday dinner. And I will probably get a green curry, which is my favorite Thai food. Anyway. What's going on, girls? Little fox. I'm getting into the studio a bit late this morning. I'm recovering from several days of birthday meals and desserts. Thai food last night, very good. Green curry with some rice, but I never feel good the next day. And my sister made some vegan cookies, which were delicious, but I don't feel so great right now. Anyway, chilling in the car for a bit, listening to Trickster Makes This World by Lewis Hyde. And right now he's talking about Loki in the Norse mythology, who is a very different character in the Norse hymns than he is in the Marvel movies, which you can imagine would be the case. But he's a somewhat sympathetic character in the Norse hymns, at least the way it's presented in this book. It reminds me a bit of myself, always tearing things apart and questioning and investigating and getting people to look at things in a way that they would not normally, habitually look at them. So maybe I'm a trickster, because I keep tricking myself into action, into motion, into ever evolving who knows what. Anyway, I am 55 years old now. How did that happen? Life is fascinating. Time is fascinating. And speaking of time, I'm going to take mine and bring it upstairs into the studio and prepare for the race that I will be timing this weekend. So today, training, coaching, timing software, and some writing. I'm thinking a lot about truth these days, doing some deep dives into the nature of truth and finding some good stuff. Okay, here we go. I'm starting the day with some very interesting listening to Trickster Makes This World by Lewis Hyde. He's talking about John Cage at the moment, the composer. And I'm struggling here because my mind is in the midst of changing, and I can feel tears welling up right now as I say that, as I admit that. I've always been repulsed by Cage and his work, or what I thought he represented. But what I'm now hearing as I listen to Lewis Hyde describe his work, and also hearing Cage's own words, I'm being brought to the realization that John Cage was up to the same thing that I'm up to. And that's hard to swallow. It almost makes me repulsed by my own work. John Cage is most famous for a piece that I think it's called 4 minutes and 32 seconds. I might have the number a little bit wrong, but just work with me here. And people came to an auditorium. There was someone sitting at a piano on stage. They opened the lid of the piano to reveal the keys and then did nothing for 4 minutes and 32 seconds. Well, there were 3 movements. So then they would close it and then they would open the cover again to signify different movements. And a lot of people got up and walked out because nothing was happening. There's no music. But what Cage was up to was revealing the world. Most people go to a concert to be taken somewhere. Take me on a journey. Guide me through my own emotional experience. Show me how to use the hardware that exists within me that I've forgotten how to use and that I've lost touch with. I need your music to reveal my truth, my feelings, my heart. And Cage did that with this piece, but in a very unexpected way. He didn't take people somewhere to then bring them back to their own feelings. He said, let's just start with you. Let's start here with your experience. How well do you know you? Can you sit and be present to you? So it wasn't Cage that was the performance. It was you that was the performance. You sitting here in the midst of uncomfortable silence. But there was noise all around you. There was the noise of your own thoughts. There was the noise of the people coughing and stirring, the noise of the street outside, the noise of the rain hitting the roof of the concert hall. There was so much going on that we do everything in our power to avoid. We avoid the moment. We avoid the here. We avoid the now. And instead, we want to be taken somewhere else and only experience ourselves in a certain way, in a curated journey. Like, make me feel just this. I want to be constrained. I want to limit the set of things that I experience. Only those that feel good. Only those in which I'm empowered. But I don't want to experience the background noise. I don't want to experience myself in a chaotic state. Only in an empowered state. So this is what my life is now. This is what I do. I work with randomness. I work with background noise. I work with not knowing. I work without a plan. I work without a structure. I just engage and see what happens. Or encage. Interesting that his name is Cage. I wonder if that's a stage name or if that's his actual name. I'm going to have to look that up because it's all about getting outside of the cage. Anyway, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about signal versus noise and left hemisphere versus right hemisphere in the brain. That the right hemisphere is basically the background. It's all the data. It's the scatter plot. And then the left hemisphere analyzes the statistical significance of the dots in the scatter plot, and then it creates a line that goes through. And it says, I found the signal. I found the gist. And then it wants to take that signal, take that gist, and isolate and say, that's what's true. That's the Platonic form. This is horseness, that all horses are unique, but none of them is actually true horseness. None of them is this essential Platonic archetypical representation of what a real true horse is. The left hemisphere wants to do that. It wants to say, this is the truth. And the right hemisphere is like, the truth is all of the dots. The truth is the whole picture. The truth is every piece of the puzzle, not simply the important element that is represented in the puzzle. So we live in a world now where we're increasingly becoming focused on us as the central figure. We're encouraged to be our identities rather than to spread out into the scatter plot and be, I don't know, be the noise. Be the noise that you want to see in the world. Anyway, I'm really just shaken up by how a composer that has always repulsed me is now suddenly revealing me in a way that I did not anticipate. Such is life. Okay, I'm going to go upstairs now do something else, but it's a big moment. Okay, or not. Maybe it's not a big moment. I don't know. We'll see. It's just noisy at the moment. I hear the noise of the lawnmower behind me. Okay, this took some real skill. That looks like a motorcycle rear tire. And it's nearly a perfect circle. Oh my God. That is some serious skill. What you doing, Bun? As promised, I want to reveal my Bigfoot stride, which I've been working on now for probably 6 years. I didn't want to release it prematurely because I wasn't sure if it was actually effective. I thought it was, but I wanted to give it a lot of tests to see if it was a fluke or if there was something else that I was doing that was leading to the results that I was getting. And after 6 years now of using this as a good chunk of my training, I'm pretty confident that this is a very effective training modality when it comes to running fitness. And it allows you to get through periods where you might have an injury that prevents you from running. So back in 2017, my Achilles bone spurs were basically at the peak of their rage, and I couldn't run anymore. I wanted to keep fit, and I wanted to continue exploring the natural environment here in Vermont. I didn't want to lose that. So I got the idea of filming the trails that I was running on in the past, because it's really beautiful here. So I got a 4K camera with a gimbal and went out to film these trails. But the gimbals remove 3 of the movement axes, but they don't remove the up-down. So I look at the footage after I shot it, and the ground would be kind of breathing like a heart from that up-down motion, which the gimbal doesn't remove. And I looked at a bunch of other people's footage, and the same thing. You get the ground breathes, and it's annoying. So I remember when I was in Los Angeles working on film sets that the Steadicam operators, the guys that were walking around with the cameras, they did this funny walk, which out there they call the duck walk. So I tried to model that walk while moving on the trails here. But due to the technical nature of Vermont trails, it's not a parking lot or grass. You can't simply do a smooth duck walk like they were doing in California. You also have to be able to navigate over the terrain. Like, how do I step over a rock or a log without the camera jumping up and down when I do so? So I changed the way that I was standing and moving so that I could basically become a human shock absorber for this camera, regardless of the terrain I was moving over. On one of my filming adventures, a friend joined me and we had a walk and talk. And they said that I looked like the Bigfoot that was captured in that very blurry, shaky footage from the 1970s. So when I was posting these as workouts on Strava, I started calling them Bigfoot Stride, just as a joke. And the reason that I posted them on Strava as workouts is that it burned. Oh my God. I would film a mile of trail and I was just completely spent. It was a sufferfest. And the camera kept me moving. It's like I want to film for 10 to 15 minutes uninterrupted. So I would just tolerate the burn in my legs as I went. But the moment I hit that mark, I would stop and I was just wrecked. So when I first started doing this, I had major DOMs. I couldn't walk for days afterwards. So I very slowly increased the amount of time that I was out there. And I did this for a couple months. I filmed maybe 30 or more trails. And then my team reached out to me and said, hey, we need you for the US 5K championships for Masters in Syracuse. We need another person to complete the team. And I'm like, not running. They're like, just show up. We need someone just to complete the team. So I went and I was like, hey, I'm not running at all. I haven't run in months, so don't expect much. But then the race started and I'm cruising at 5-minute pace and feeling really comfortable. Ended up finishing in, I think it was a 15:50 something. I forget, maybe 15:57. So I broke 16 minutes, which is a solid time without any running, just doing this Bigfoot. And I thought, ooh, that is interesting. But I didn't want to assume that it was the Bigfoot that gave me that performance, so I've been testing ever since. In 2019, when I broke the American record in the road mile for 50 and over, I used the Bigfoot as my training. In fact, it was intentional. I did not run to train for that race. I wanted to see what the Bigfoot would do. I believed in it that much. So the 4:46 that I ran in Flint to get the record was just Bigfoot training. I was in Sweden, where nobody looks at you, nobody cares, because everybody is very introverted and they just kind of mind their own business. So I could Bigfoot all over Sweden and nobody looked at me like I had 3 heads, which was great. Here in the States, if I were to Bigfoot in front of other people, they would laugh and call me names and I'd be like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Anyway, so that was a huge testament to the Bigfoot, running that 4:46 mile with no run training, but just moving at a 15 to 20 minute mile in this low slung position, which I'm going to show you now. So you'll see that my head is pretty much level. And again, when I was filming, I would keep the camera right in front of my face. So I'm keeping myself under load the entire time. The hip flexors, the glutes, the quads, and really getting that leg out in front of me in a big way, and then pushing out the back. But the key thing is that my head was not going up and down. That's how you know if you're doing the Bigfoot. If you're in somewhat of a lungy position and you're bouncing, you're not doing the Bigfoot. You have to keep your head level. And it can help to have someone else observe you or hold a camera and then look at the footage. Is the footage going up and down? So I think a good way to learn how to do the Bigfoot is to have a camera and film something as you're moving. Is it steady or not? And then keep modifying what you're doing until it's perfectly smooth, so it looks like you're floating through space. Then you'll get the maximum load on that drive chain. And it's kind of like a bicycle. You're moving, pulling up on the pedals as you're pushing down. So that's kind of how the Bigfoot works. You're pulling up with the front leg as you're pushing with the back leg, and together there's this circular nature to it that keeps you under load the entire time. If you do this, start with 100 meters, then work your way up to 200, 300, 400. Don't just go out there and try to knock out a mile or 5K doing this. You will not be able to move. I had a friend who tried this in 2020. She was dealing with a lot of issues, and I said, start small. She didn't. And then the next time I saw her, I'm like, how did it go? She's like, oh my God, I couldn't walk for a week. And I had that same experience. One day I got a little ambitious when I was using this as a training modality rather than filming trails, and I did 10K at Bigfoot, and I literally had DOMs for 5 days afterwards. I was wrecked. So be careful and slowly move up with how much you do the Bigfoot. But I've been testing this now for a very long time, and every race I enter with lots of Bigfoot, I do quite well. Last year in the Mount Greylock Half Marathon, you climb 3,000 feet pretty much from the gun, and then you have to complete another 10 miles after climbing Mount Greylock. And my training was Bigfoot, and I did very well. I got second place overall at the age of 54 without running. So again and again, I have proven to myself and hopefully collected enough data now to say with confidence that this is a great way to train if you can't run or if you hate running. And it's not that I was doing Bigfoot for 13 miles to prepare for a half marathon. The most that I would do now is 3 miles. That's kind of my limit. I won't do 10K anymore. But most of the time I'll just do 30 minutes. And 30 minutes is rarely even 2 miles. So 30 minutes to an hour is the most that I will do, and that's enough. So yeah, there you go, the Bigfoot stride. I'll try to get some more videos out, but this is the intro, the background, and I'm sold, I'm hooked. Yeah, it looks stupid, and yeah, it hurts, but wow, is it effective. It is a very bright and chilly morning as I am setting up for the 43rd Steve Zimianic Bennington Road Race. Steve was my coach in high school. We called him Zim, and he was a big inspiration for me and big piece of the puzzle in my athletic career. So, out here today to keep this race alive. In the past, I would have been running it, but now I'm part of the race committee and I will be timing the race today. I don't ever remember the blossoms out this time of year. There's the little kids' playhouse. And there's the former governor's mansion. The race did a 3.8-mile loop around the governor's property. Love these old porches. Yeah. Yeah. You're a fully cooked quiche, Nina. What's going on? What's going on? What's that, Piggly Wiggly?
Oh, sweet girl. Sweet girl, Trudy.
What body part is that? Oh no, it's gone.
Charter school.
Why am I making this video right now? Because the Kruger leg drive that I was trying to incorporate into my skiing back in March, early April, is now translated into how I use this new elliptical, which is translating into how I'm roller skiing. And suddenly the world is a very different place. I was using the elliptical as a runner in the past. So when I started, it was a replacement for running because as my ankle deteriorated, I had to find a way to keep running fitness without running much. So the elliptical was somewhat a replacement for a running motion. And that's the way I've been using it up until a couple days ago. And what I'm discovering is that if I bend my knees and move my body like I do while skiing, trying to simulate Simmons-Kruger's leg drive, that not only do I have a very different experience on the elliptical, but baking in that motion then translates into how I roller ski. So I did a roller ski earlier today, and I'm flying up hills now with a full body drive rather than a lot of arms and then desperately trying to get my legs involved somehow, and doing quite well using that technique. But now suddenly this switch on the elliptical to a ski-centric motion and then bringing that out onto roller skis has changed everything. So I'm really excited because this is a sport that is just continually evolving for me. And I'm also curious to see how using the elliptical like a skier is going to change my running, because I am going to do races every now and again, like the US Mountain Champs last weekend. And I'm not going to be running as training, but I'm also now not going to be doing the elliptical as a runner. I'm going to be doing it as a skier, and it's harder as a skier. And it still involves the glutes, but it's involving my quads much, much more than it did in the past. Using it as a runner, it's primarily a glute and lower leg, soleus and calf, but the quads don't really get a huge workout. They're working, but they're not a dominant mover. But with this new skiing knock-kneed motion, like normally as a runner I was using the elliptical like this, but now I'm knock-kneed and I'm kind of driving like two pistons at an angle, and it's totally different, and I love it, and I can feel my legs swelling and burning as I go, and I'm just getting into that. So I don't know, breakthroughs to come, skiing, running, I don't know. It's just so much fun to step outside of the standard box of this is how you need to train as a runner or as a skier. Because I see skiers locked into certain styles or methods of training, and I'm stepping outside of all of it. I'm just playing, I'm experimenting, and I'm getting really fast on roller skis now, just after 2 or 3 days of skiing. And it's so much fun to now turn 55 and to keep getting better. It's not like I'm trying to hold on to a certain fitness. It keeps evolving. So more to come, and this evolutionary approach that I'm now in the midst of is becoming more and more appealing as I continue this journey. Another week is in the books, and it's strange, but I want to say that I'm happy this one's over. As much as I really wanted to help out with the race today, it was a stressor that took me away from working on my stuff, things that are really important. Changed my training for the week. It changed my writing. It changed my coaching. It was super important because this is a community event that I really want to see continue and thrive. So it was a bit of a sacrifice to do it, but yet I'm happy it's over. Yeah, I'm happy it's over. I look forward to getting back into my flow and not having anything on the horizon for a while. Like now I'm past skiing, I'm past the US Mountain Championships, I'm past the timing and race direction today, and now I just want to expand into learning and writing and growing and training and supporting people the best way that I can and making more content. So this was a lean week, but there were a lot of important lessons learned this week, and I wish there were a way for me to share more of them, but then the videos would be hours long. So maybe I'll start pulling things out and doing some getting started videos, or where do I begin videos, or other types, just so that I can share more. But yeah, big week, but hard for me to pick up the camera and communicate. And this is strange, but I had a rest day on Friday. I just did 4 pull-ups yesterday, and today was another rest day for strength. So that's the first time in a very, very long time that I've had such a minimal strength week. Do I hear someone out my door? Sounds like an animal out there. I heard like a whining dog. And I hear noise out there. There shouldn't be anybody in the building. I should be here alone. The mill is mine on Sundays. May have to get a butter knife and investigate. Anyway, I'm gonna head home. I think I'm gonna hop on the treadmill and go to bed and wake up to new possibility. Okay, I'll see you in the next one.